This is Baku, the capital city of Azerbaijan. It is found some 28 meters below sea level, making it the lowest lying capital city on the planet. So the city sits on this little peninsula here within the Caspian Sea. It isn't just the lowest lying capital on Earth, but the lowest lying city of its size. Nearly 2.5 million people live within the city's metro region. That's about a quarter of the country's entire population. Lying some 26 meters higher on average, Amsterdam is the world's second lowest lying capital city. So the Dutch capital sits at -2 meters, ever so slightly below sea level. Its metro population is also coincidentally around 2.5 million, around the same as that of Baku. So that is the only two capital cities that are classed as being below sea level. We then have 27 capital cities that have an elevation of 0 meters, meaning they are found at sea level. Some examples are Male of the Maldives, Panama City of Panama, Port of Spain of Trinidad and Tobago, and Libreville of Gabon, to name but a few. Most of the countries who find their capital's elevation sitting at sea level are found across Oceania, Africa, and the Caribbean. The only one from Europe is Monaco, and the only two from Asia being Bandar Seri Begawan of Brunei and Singapore. So that is the world's lowest lying capital cities. Let's now travel around the world investigating the highest capital cities on Earth. So at around 600 meters, Canberra is the highest capital city across all of Oceania. Canberra, of course, being the capital of Australia. It is found in the very southeast of the country, kind of in between Sydney and Melbourne, the two most populated cities in the country. What's kind of interesting is that Australia as a whole is a rather flat country, having an average elevation of just 330 meters, meaning Canberra is almost double the elevation of the rest of the country. At around 1023 meters, Andorra la Vella is Europe's highest capital. It is the capital city of course, Andorra. Its capital being so high comes to no surprise, as the country is found in the Pyrenees Mountains, landlocked and sandwiched in between France and Spain. So travelling some 7,600 kilometers pretty much directly east, we arrive at Ulaanbaatar, the capital city of Mongolia. At 1,350 meters, the city is the highest in all of the region known as East Asia. Now, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but there is something odd looking about this city. Maybe it's the way that it's spaced out with very few tall buildings amongst the green rolling hills in the background. It definitely has quite a unique look to it, especially considering most big cities in East Asia tend to be filled with modern skyscrapers. So travelling some nearly 13,000 kilometers east, we arrive in Guatemala City, which at 1,500 meters is the highest capital city found in Central America. However, this depends on your definition of Central America. I personally don't include Mexico with this group of countries, however some sources do. If you do include Mexico, then its capital, Mexico City, easily smashes Guatemala City for the highest capital title. At 2,240 meters, it is the highest capital city in not just Central America, but Middle and North America too. Standing roughly 10 meters higher on average, Sana'a, the capital city of Yemen, is the highest capital found across all of the Middle East. The city is found in the west of the country and perhaps one of the least visited capital cities on Earth, especially during the last decade or so, where the civil war has flattened much of the city. But does 2,250 meters make Sana'a Asia's highest capital city? Well, no. It just misses out on that top spot, being lower than only one other capital on the continent, that capital being Thimphu of Bhutan. Now, this comes to absolutely no surprise, as Bhutan is the world's highest country in terms of average elevation. The country sits on the edge of the Himalayas and isn't just the highest country on Earth, but the most mountainous too. Some 98.8% of its land is said to be covered in mountains. Now, Bhutan is a rather unique and interesting country. It's kind of similar to North Korea in the sense that it's closed off from the outside world to some sort of degree, but not for authoritarian and evil reasons, more to preserve its nature and culture. In order to travel in Bhutan, you must pay $200 a day, and you must travel via a tour company. So at roughly 1 meter higher, we then have Addis Ababa, the capital city of Ethiopia and the highest capital found across all of Africa. Now, Addis Ababa is perhaps my favorite capital city name on earth. I have no idea why, it just kind of flows off the tongue nicely. But anyways, Addis Ababa is found kind of central in the country, within the country's highlands. Not too far from the Great Rift Valley, which explains why the city is found so high up. Now, before we move on to the next capital, let's take a quick look at Nairobi, Kenya, which has an interesting story. So Kenya as a whole has an average elevation of 762 meters, which means it's not particularly flat. However, it is still below the world average of 840 meters. However, its capital, Nairobi, is found some 1,800 meters above sea level, meaning it's found some 2.4 times higher up than the rest of the country on average. If you can think of any other countries who have a similar situation, let us know in the comments below. So let's now travel across the Atlantic to South America, where we'll stay for the remainder of the video. So at 2,625 meters, we then have Bogota, the capital city of Colombia. So we've now breached the 2,500 meters mark, which is said to be the elevation at which some people will start to experience altitude sickness. So if you were to fly from sea level to Bogota, there's a chance that as soon as you step off the plane, you'd start to feel a bit weak, dizzy, and generally sick. There is no cure for this other than time, letting your body acclimatise to the change in oxygen levels. So let's now climb another 165 meters, which takes us up to 2,790 meters, which is the height of Sucre, one of two of Bolivia's capital cities. Climbing another 60 or so meters and traveling some 1,700 kilometers southwest, we arrive in the second highest capital city on the planet, Quito of Ecuador. Now, this city is rather unique, not just because of how high up it is, but also as it's the closest capital city to the equator. Around 26 kilometers north of Quito, you will find Middle of the World City, a town in which the equator runs directly through, meaning it's possible to have one foot in the southern equator and the other in the north. And then finally climbing another 790 meters and traveling back to Bolivia, we arrive in the world's highest capital city, La Paz. Now, as mentioned earlier, Bolivia has two capitals. La Paz is the country's administrative capital. But as Sucre is the country's constitutional capital, some people may therefore not accept La Paz's claim to fame, and instead award the world's highest capital title to Quito. Regardless of contradicting sources, La Paz stands 3,640 meters on average above sea level. At this altitude, there is just 13% of effective oxygen versus around 21% at sea level. With La Paz being so high but not too far from the equator, it has a very interesting climate, being generally very cold in the mornings and then heating up to average highs of 17 to 19 degrees throughout the year during the day when the sun rises. So is La Paz the highest capital city on Earth? Well, by official UN countries, yes. However, if we include all states on Earth, that's de facto independent states, autonomous regions and dependencies, then Lhasa of Tibet would be the world's highest capital city. So Lhasa is found here just north of Bhutan and has an average elevation of some 3,656 meters, some 16 meters higher than La Paz. So there we have it, the highest capital cities found around the world. If you've ever been to any of these capitals, tell us what they're like in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more content like this, and as always, thanks for watching.